The sun hung low over the desert, casting long shadows across the dusty town. A soft wind blew through the streets, carrying the faint scent of dry earth and sagebrush. The town was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the occasional creak of a wooden sign swinging in the breeze. A lone cowboy rode slowly along the main street, his horse moving with careful steps. He had been on the trail for many days and was used to traveling alone. His boots were worn, and the brim of his hat shaded a face lined with years of experience and silent observation. He looked like a man who had seen much and learned to trust his instincts above all else. As he rode past the few shops and a small saloon, his eyes caught a figure sitting near the river that ran at the edge of town. It was an elderly Apache woman, her hair streaked with gray, wrapped in a simple shawl. She sat on a rock, her gaze fixed on something far away. Around her, the desert seemed to slow down, and even the wind softened. The cowboy slowed his horse, curiosity pulling him closer. There was something unusual about the way she sat, calm yet alert, as if she expected someone or something to appear at any moment. He dismounted slowly, tying his horse to a post, and approached her carefully. The woman's eyes met his, sharp and clear despite her age. She spoke in a calm voice, full of quiet authority. "He has no idea you exist," she said. Her words were simple, but they carried weight, like a warning hidden in plain sight. The cowboy paused, unsure what she meant. Did she speak of danger? Or of someone who needed help? The wind shifted slightly, and he felt a chill run down his spine, though the sun was still warm. He looked around, trying to understand. That was when he noticed the boy. He was small, no more than 10 or 11. Crouched behind a rock, a little ways from the woman, his dark eyes peered at the cowboy from a cautious distance. The boy's clothes were worn and patched, his hair tangled from days without care. Something about him made the cowboy hesitate. The boy did not run, but he did not move closer either. He simply watched, silent and still. The Apache woman glanced at the boy and then back at the cowboy. Her voice was softer this time. "He has been hiding for a long time. He trusts no one. But you may need to be careful with him." Her words were mysterious, but the cowboy sensed that they were true. He had seen fear and distrust in children before, though this boy's fear seemed deeper, born not just of the desert, but of people he had encountered along the way. For a moment, the cowboy thought of turning away. He had learned that some mysteries were better left alone, that not every shadow needed chasing. But something in the boy's eyes held him there. The boy's gaze was filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity, the kind that reminded him of his own childhood. He had been a child once, wandering through fields and forests, learning the ways of the world and the ways to survive. And now, seeing this boy, he remembered how alone he had felt sometimes, how he had wished for someone to understand him. The Apache woman shifted slightly, motioning for him to sit on a nearby rock. He obeyed, keeping a careful distance. "He does not speak much," she said quietly. "He does not even know if he can trust anyone. He has learned to hide. Sometimes hiding keeps him safe. Sometimes it keeps him lonely." The cowboy listened, sensing that every word she spoke had meaning beyond the surface. The boy moved a little closer, staying low to the ground, almost like a small animal watching for danger. The cowboy noticed how cautious he was, how carefully he placed each step. The boy's hands were small and roughened by work, or perhaps by the harshness of the life he had led. He seemed aware of every sound, every movement, as if the desert itself had taught him to pay attention. "Why is he hiding?" the cowboy asked. His voice was calm but carried a hint of concern. The woman's eyes softened for a moment, looking at the boy with a mix of pride and sorrow. "He has seen things that most should never see. He knows people can be cruel. He knows he must be careful. But he is strong, stronger than many adults. He just doesn't know it yet. The cowboy nodded slowly. He understood more than he wanted to admit. Life on the trail had taught him that strength often came in quiet forms. It was not always about fighting or riding hard. Sometimes it was about patience, observation, and knowing when to act. The boy had strength, hidden behind fear, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. For a while, they sat in silence. The wind moved through the rocks and trees, carrying a sense of peace, and yet the tension between caution and curiosity hung in the air. The cowboy glanced at the boy again. The boy's eyes met his for a brief moment, and in that instant, something passed between them, a silent acknowledgement that neither was entirely alone in the desert. The Apache woman spoke again, her voice firm, yet gentle. If you approach him too quickly, he will run. If you show fear, he will see it. But if you show patience, perhaps he will learn to trust you. The cowboy understood the wisdom in her words. He had learned long ago that patience was often more powerful than force. The boy's trust could not be demanded. It had to be earned, step by careful step. The cowboy reached slowly into his bag and pulled out a small piece of bread. He broke it in half and set it gently on a rock, leaving it just close enough for the boy to reach if he wished. The boy watched, his eyes wide and uncertain. He did not move immediately, but he did not run either. It was a small victory, a first step in the fragile bridge of trust between them. The woman smiled faintly, as if she had expected this moment. He will come closer when he feels safe. Do not hurry him. Her words were patient and wise, and the cowboy felt a sense of respect for her experience. She had lived a long life in these lands, seen the ways of people, and understood the hearts of children. The sun continued its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Shadows lengthened, and the desert began to cool. The cowboy remained seated, watching the boy, respecting his space, and observing every small movement. The boy inched closer, drawn by curiosity, drawn by the kindness of someone who did not threaten him. Every cautious step he took was a small triumph, a quiet statement of his willingness to trust. As the day slipped toward evening, the cowboy realized that he had made a choice, even without fully deciding. By remaining patient, by watching and waiting, he had begun to form a connection. The boy had noticed him, just as the woman had warned, but not yet fully understood him. The air was thick with unspoken stories, shared silently across the space between them. Night began to settle over the town, stars emerging in the clear desert sky. The boy finally reached the rock where the bread lay and took a small bite, glancing nervously at the cowboy. The cowboy nodded gently, a silent gesture of approval and reassurance. The first step had been taken. The boy was not alone, at least not entirely. And the cowboy knew that patience and observation were the keys to what might come next. The Apache woman rose slowly, her shawl catching the last rays of sunlight. She placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder, guiding him to sit nearby. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "you will see more clearly. But for now, let him be. He means no harm. He only waits for the right moment to help." Her words lingered in the cool desert air, leaving a quiet sense of hope. The cowboy remained seated, watching as the boy finally relaxed slightly. The tension that had held him rigid for so long began to ease, replaced by cautious curiosity. In that moment, the cowboy understood something important. Some connections could not be forced. They grew slowly, like the desert flowers that bloomed after the rare rains, fragile yet resilient. As the night deepened, the cowboy made a silent promise to himself. He would wait. He would observe. He would protect if needed, but he would not rush the boy. The Apache woman had given him guidance, but the choice to act or to wait was his. And in that quiet desert night, A small bond began to form. Fragile but real. Between the cowboy and the boy who had no idea he existed in this vast, silent world. The next morning, the desert woke slowly. The sun rose over the horizon, spilling soft light across the sand and rocks. The cowboy had stayed near the edge of town, keeping a careful watch from a distance. The boy was already awake, sitting quietly by the river, dipping his fingers into the cool water. The gentle sound of flowing water seemed to calm him, and the cowboy watched without moving, respecting the quiet moment. The Apache woman appeared again, moving with a calm grace that came from years of living in the harsh lands. She sat beside the boy, her presence steady and reassuring. "He is watching," she whispered to the boy, pointing subtly toward the cowboy. He had remembered the kindness of the previous evening, the piece of bread, the patient silence, the calm and careful observation. Somehow, he felt safe enough to consider the stranger, though trust was still far away. The cowboy noticed the boy watching him too. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and he gave a small nod, a silent message that he meant no harm. He could feel the boy's caution, the careful weighing of every action, and he understood it perfectly. Patience was required. Rushing would only push the boy away, and the cowboy knew it. He had learned that the quietest, gentlest actions often meant more than words or gestures of force. The boy took a hesitant step forward, then another. The cowboy remained seated, still, careful not to frighten him. Slowly, the boy came closer, keeping a small distance, his eyes scanning the cowboy's face for any sign of danger. The desert was quiet except for the river, the wind, and the occasional bird calling overhead. It was a fragile peace, a moment that could vanish if handled carelessly. Finally, the boy stopped at a safe distance. He picked up a small stick and played with it, testing the cowboy's reaction. The cowboy smiled softly and did nothing. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension easing just a little. The first steps toward trust had been taken. The Apache woman stood and looked at the cowboy. "He has been alone too long," she said softly. "He must learn that not all people will harm him. Some may even help, but it is up to you to show him." Her words were calm, yet carried the weight of experience. She knew the boy's heart and understood how fragile it was. The cowboy nodded silently, understanding the responsibility he had been given. The boy finally spoke, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. "Why are you here?" he asked, eyes fixed on the cowboy. The question was simple, but the meaning behind it was deep. It was not just curiosity, it was a test. He wanted to know if the cowboy could be trusted. The cowboy took a slow breath. "I am just passing through," he said gently. "I mean no harm. I just want to help, if I can." He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. The boy listened, not fully trusting, but hearing the sincerity in the voice. For the next few hours, they remained near the river, the boy keeping a careful distance, the cowboy remaining patient. He offered small gestures, a piece of fruit, a drink from his canteen, a quiet comment about the water or the rocks. He did not try to force conversation. He simply allowed the boy to observe him, to see that his actions matched his words. Slowly, the boy began to respond. A small smile appeared when the cowboy handed him a piece of fruit. He edged closer, still cautious, but the fear that had defined him for so long began to loosen its grip. The cowboy watched carefully, noticing every subtle change. Trust, he knew, was built in small steps, not giant leaps. As the day grew warmer, the cowboy and the boy moved closer together. The Apache woman watched from a short distance, a quiet smile on her face. She knew that connections like these were rare and precious. Sometimes, all a child needed was someone who would listen, someone who would show patience, someone who would be steady in a world full of sudden dangers. By midday, The boy was sitting near the cowboy, not quite beside him, but close enough to allow conversation. "Are you alone too?" he asked, eyes wide and curious. The question was simple, but it revealed a lot. The boy was reaching out, testing the waters of trust. The cowboy nodded. "I have been alone on the trail for a long time," he admitted. "Sometimes it is lonely, but it also teaches you things. You learn to notice, to think, to survive." He did not tell the boy everything. Some stories were too heavy, but enough to show understanding. The boy listened, intrigued. He had been alone for so long, surviving, day by day, avoiding trouble, hiding from danger. And yet, here was someone who seemed to understand without judging, who waited patiently, who offered kindness without strings attached. The boy felt something new: hope. Fragile, but real. As the afternoon wore on, the cowboy and the boy shared quiet moments by the river. The cowboy told small stories about his travels, about the animals he had seen, the people he had met, the lessons he had learned. The boy listened, occasionally asking questions, his fear slowly giving way to curiosity. The Apache woman approached once more, her voice calm and wise. "There is someone nearby," she said, softly. "Someone who means to cause him harm if he is not careful. You must be cautious, but you must not show fear." The cowboy's expression hardened slightly. He understood the danger, but he also understood the importance of trust. He could protect the boy, but he would not force him to act or speak before he was ready. The cowboy and the boy continued their cautious bond, aware of the threat that lingered nearby. The boy began to open up slowly, telling small pieces of his story: how he had learned to survive, how he had avoided towns and people, how he had relied on his instincts and the wisdom of the Apache woman. The cowboy listened, nodding and encouraging him gently. He knew that safety was more than protection from immediate danger. It was also knowing that someone would stand by you, that someone could be trusted. As evening approached, the cowboy made a decision. He would not leave the boy alone. He would stay, at least for now, until the boy was stronger, more confident, and able to face the world with a little less fear. The boy noticed this and felt a strange warmth in his chest. He was not used to this feeling. He had been alone for so long that trust seemed impossible. But here was someone showing patience and care, without expectation. The sun set, painting the desert in shades of gold, pink, and purple. Shadows stretched long, and the air cooled. The boy sat closer to the cowboy than before, no longer hiding behind rocks. He reached out and touched the cowboy's hand briefly, a quiet gesture of trust. The cowboy smiled, understanding the significance. The bond that had begun yesterday had grown, fragile yet strong enough to hold a promise. The Apache woman stood nearby, watching the scene unfold. She had offered guidance, wisdom, and warnings, but the rest was up to the cowboy, and he had risen to the challenge. He had shown patience, respect, and understanding, qualities that the boy had never fully experienced before. For the first time in his life, the boy felt that he could be seen and safe. At the same time, night settled over the town, and the stars appeared in the clear desert sky. The boy finally leaned against the cowboy. Not fully. The cowboy remained quiet, allowing the boy to feel safe, understanding that the smallest gestures often carried the greatest meaning. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, that danger still lurked nearby, but for now, they were together, and that was enough. The cowboy reflected quietly on the day. He had come into town alone, unsure of what he would find. He had not expected to encounter a boy so wary, a boy so cautious, a boy who had learned to survive by hiding. And yet, through patience, understanding, and small gestures of kindness, he had begun to build a connection. A bond had formed, fragile but real, and it gave him hope. The boy, too, felt something he had not known before: safety. He had learned that not everyone would harm him, that some people could be trusted, that the world could hold kindness as well as danger. For the first time in many months, maybe years, he allowed himself to believe that he was not entirely alone. The night was calm, the desert quiet, except for the occasional rustle of wind through the rocks. The cowboy and the boy remained near the river, the gentle sound of flowing water soothing them both. They did not speak much, for words were not always needed. The bond between them was quiet, steady, and real. And though danger might come tomorrow, though the boy's life might still face challenges, for this night they were together, and that was enough. The Apache woman finally turned and walked back toward the edge of the town, leaving the cowboy and the boy in the quiet of the desert night. She had done her part, guiding and warning. The rest was now in the hands of the cowboy, who had learned that patience, observation, and small acts of kindness could build trust where fear had long reigned. In the stillness of the desert, under the vast, star-filled sky, the boy allowed himself to rest. He felt a tiny spark of hope, fragile, but real. The cowboy watched over him, silently promising that he would not fail this boy who had so long remained unseen. And in that quiet, gentle night, a new story began. A story of trust, courage, and the first steps toward a life where he would no longer need to hide.